Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the graveyard, and I have my Necromancer pure build Undead Army for you. This is going to be the only class, the only build I should say, that I will keep the Necro a purebred in the aspects of the subclassing meta. With that being said, I don't think that this build in particular will ever change outside of the Undead Army. It's pretty much the staple of the channel, so always look forward to seeing these in pretty much every upcoming patch. I don't ever plan on getting rid of this, but I will always, of course, come up with other unique and niche and creative builds. With that being said, let's jump right into the character sheet here. We are looking at our unbuffed stats across the board. Weapon and spell damage will go up, and then physical, critical, and spell resistance will go up as well with our back bar set and our defensive stats. Recoveries, I know they don't look that great on paper, but of course, pots will go a long way. And then, of course, our spell critical and critical damage will go up passively as well. We are 37 into magic, 27 into health. We are Breton, as always, using the Thief Mundus and Jewels of Misrule. If you don't like this, then definitely use Smoked Bear Haunch. This is just what I have, so I'm going to go through these before I go and make more Bear Haunch. Looking at the back bar sets here, just looking at our defensive stats, I'm not in Battle Spirit, so you won't be able to see Rallying Cry, but you can see that our physical and spell resist... Oh, hold on, didn't buff up. Physical and spell resistance are 27 and 22. And then if you don't like Healing Soul, of course, our Resistance Flesh will also make these a bit juicier, but, it's to each their own. Whichever you like using better. I just happen to like Healing Soul for the Major Vitality. Looking at our skills here, we are, of course, the Undead Army, so Animate Blast Bones, this is our bread and butter. We're going to be getting this up every 20 to 25 seconds, depending on your aggressiveness and how you play. Blighted Blast Bones, we're going to be sending these guys out with every rotation. Never not have this on the battlefield. You don't want to be left without your Blighted Blast Bones. This is your damage. This is your secondary spammable. It's cheap. You can kite with this, you can line of sight with this, you can have it take meteors. It does it all. Blighted Blast Bones is my favorite skill in this game, and it is not going anywhere. Crushing Shock. As much as I like this skill, there is a bit of a twist, and we'll get into that in a minute. But Crushing Shock is our primary spammable. It's cheap, does a lot of damage, it's elemental skill, off balance on the enemy if they are hit while they are casting something. Flame Clench, a lot of people don't use Flame Clench anymore. I don't know why. Burning status effect goes a long way. And it knocks them back 8 meters. You ever been on one of those BG maps where you're just tired of people not dying? Well, guess what? You get close enough to the edge and you're going to be sending these guys to heaven because you ain't going to be able to withstand the fall damage. Spirit Guardian, this is our damage mitigation with a joke of a heal attached to it, but it is what it is. 10% is 10%, and it gives us a corpse. Summoner's Armor, this is going to be giving us a corpse next patch because, of course, with the whole idea of the build summoning the army of the dead, you need corpses. But it's nice that this is going to be passively giving us a corpse like Nobility and Decay, and then if you pair that with Nobility and Decay, you could stack 2 corpses on yourselves, but it is what it is. I don't have room for Nobility, so Summoner's Armor is kind of giving us a advantage. And then as always is going to give you the minor resolve buff as well if you don't have vigor, but with PvP, vigor is pretty much a must. While active, this is also going to be reducing the cost of our Blast Bones, Skeletal Mage, and Spirit Mender. And then in the back bar, Healing Soul, talked about this. If you don't like that, use Resistance Flesh. Necrotic Potency, I chose this morph simply just because it gives us greater ultimates on return. 6 ultimate per corpse, that is a huge chunk of ulti, which helps us keep the army of the dead summoned more frequently. And then of course, it's passively giving us some 3% damage mitigation and a bit of healing. Race Against Time, Snare Removal, Major Expedition, Binding Contingency. So this is something that was kind of thought about, but I never actually tried it out to see for myself. Minor Innervation is a wonderful tool to stack with the Rallying Cry and crit damage meta. So Rallying Cry is going to give you 24% crit resistance across the board, and then on top of that, you can choose to reduce the enemy's crit damage by an additional 10%. Thus, pretty much making you tankier, and us being in light armor, that goes a long way with them. Spellcasters from range, and then of course anybody that's using some, heavy crit sets with assassination and animal companions and whatever was the Adric spear that has all that crit damage stack. So this is going to be your best friend. On top of that, we're going to be reducing more overall damage by 8% and immobilizing them. And of course this pairs nicely with our mythic monomyth that's going to give you the major protection. So 8% monomyth, then you have the ghost, then you have the passive damage mitigation with this, then you have the rallying cry resistances, minor innervations, another 10%. It all adds up. It's super nice. Resolving Vigor. We have it should be a little bit higher, but like I said, we don't have Battle Spirit active. We don't have our buffs all the way up, but this Vigor can get around 18 to 19k. Super helpful, but not much higher than this in Battlegrounds with no CP. Temporal Guard, simply just for the minor protection, major and minor protection. It's very helpful in PvP. Alright, jumping into the sets here, I am still rocking the Ritualist, but with a twist. So usually I would have a Shock Staff, but now I'm using an Inferno Staff and the Charged trait. Why is this? Because Necromancer, read the passives. If we go into Gravelord here, we are simply just going to look at this one right here. Death Kneel. Critical strike chance against enemies under 33% health. A lot of the times people struggle to execute enemies and they just happen to stay at barely any health, but they're just tanking everything. This is going to be your best friend when you pair it with dots. Why dots? Because Rapid Rot Necromancer gets a 10% bonus damage to damage over time effects. Why is damage over time effects important? Well, because the more dots we have, the more ultimate we're going to get. Baron Zodorus. Applying status effects to an enemy will give you a stack of Zodorus Ambition for 10 seconds. 3 stacks max. When you gain 3 stacks, you get Ford Ultimate. How do you get 3 stacks? You use Force Pulse. Why is Force Pulse? Because you get 3 elemental status effects. Why is that? Because you have a charged effect. Charged trait. So every time you Force Pulse, you're going to be getting 4 Ultimate on top of the 3 Ultimate, on top of the Major Heroism, on top of the corpse consumption, on top of, like, dude, you're just getting ultimate for existing. So, I mean, I'll just burn my ulti right here. We'll look at this guy right here, and then I'll show you 2 ways that you can do this. So, we're just going to light attack, crushing shock, and just watch the ult stack. 7, 10, 13, 20, 23, 27, 30, 33. I mean, it's crazy. Some of my light attacks aren't even going off. I mean, just sitting here talking to you, less than 10 seconds, we're already at 100 ultimate. So combine that along with all of your passives, corpse consuming abilities, the 6 per corpse from your necrotic potency. The Undead Army is pretty much up every 20 seconds, which is super nice. And of course you can time that in the gameplay videos that I'll show you as well. I might even do like a commentary as to how to with this build. But the other way that you could do this, and it is a bit less damage up front, but if you play strategically, you can get away with elemental susceptibility as your spammable. And the reason why I say that is now you're incorporating Major Breach. So even though Elisus isn't really that much of a damaging skill per se, but if you look at the charged status effect and just how the destruction staff operates with status effects in general, along with the rapid rot, here it is. Inferno staves increase your damage done with damage over time and status effects by 12%. So I was going to think, well, you know, how would you use Elisus as a spammable? If you compare that to, or if you combined that with Rapid Rot and the Destruction passives, Elisus is actually a very useful spammable. And as you can see, because it's giving us all of the status effects and the increased damage, some of our crits are even hitting like 6k for a free spammable. On top of that, we're going to be getting a crap ton of ultimate back and giving the enemy Major Breach because of Baron Zodorus. Now, when you start incorporating a heavy attack into your CC with the burning status effect, all of this stuff will now stack, along with your poison glyphs, along with any poisons that you might be running, or whatever status effects your other abilities then put on the enemy, and it's just going to always be applying because of the charged trait on your Inferno staff. So, burning, dots, rapid rot, destruction staff, passives, it is a super useful tool in pretty much keeping the dead up at all times. Curious of the Trainee, just having that max health. Ritualist, we're using 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium. Infused on all the jewelry, monomyth as you can see. And then we are using a resto staff on the back bar, just simply to have more healing across the board. One useful tip, if you do a heavy resto, now you have major mending and major vitality at the same time. So try to get those heavies off first before you do the burst heal. That way you get the most out of your healing soul, because that major vitality is going to stack with your major mending and just giving you a crap ton of healing. And then of course always have your vigor ticking in the background. Looking at the CP here, we have... oh, hold on. We have Fighting Finesse, Cleansing Revival, super helpful in 1vx situations, Master at Arms, and Resilience. I like to double dip in the crit resistance just because we have light armor on. If you don't like this, then take off Resilience and put on Thaumaturge just to boost your dot damage even more. Red Tree, Pain's Refuge, Boundless Vitality, Survival Instincts, and Celerity. And before I forget, if you don't quite understand the whole dot setup and why dots maybe aren't as effective as the burst meta, dots are super helpful on Necro simply because we are going to be applying the major and minor defile to enemies at all times, because Blighted Blastbones is going to reduce the enemy's healing by 24%. So while you have all of your dots ticking and you're constantly reapplying them to people, this is going to be kind of like a pseudo execute, simply just because you're going to be negating a crap ton of healing from them. So as long as you keep Blighted Blastbones up and you keep your dots up, they're not going to be able to out heal the dots on top of the burst that you're supplying from the Blastbone itself, and then of course the Army of the Dead that hits all of them at the same time. So with our fully buffed up tooltip, obviously without Rallying Cry, our Blastbones are hitting for just under 15k, and then with Rallying Cry and, you know, whatever other side buffs from your teammates, this could be like 16, 17k. But now when you have 4 of these bad boys charging at your enemies, it's 30, 60, about 75,000 burst damage at once. If they're not blocking, they're gonna die. It is what it is. 75,000 upfront damage just from Blastbones and Animate Blastbones. It's a crap ton of damage. Yeah, super fun. This is how you play Necro. I don't care what anybody else says. This is the Necromancer, and of course it's a purebred build, so it just makes you feel that much cooler. All right. If there's anything I missed, oh yeah, the pots. There's no room for major sorcery and major prophecy, so we are using the spell draft pots from Cyrodiil. Sustain's not an issue. You're not really blocking. You have light armor. You should be dodge rolling. You should be kiting. You should be using everything that you can in a purebred setup. Don't let anybody cheat you about kiting in a 1v1 or whatever. You're gonna fight me on this setup. I'm gonna play as dirty as I can. Yeah. But if you don't like these, then, figure it out yourself. No, I'm just kidding. This is the best setup. Spell draft pots from Cyrodiil is going to be your best friend, just simply because they're giving you max magic recovery, the spell damage, and the critical buff that you need. Alright, I gotta go. Peace out. Stay frosty. I'll see you in the graveyard.